Good afternoon, everyone. Today, with me, Larry Pierce, the author of A New Little Ice Age Has Started. Now, Larry and I have been conversing for about 2 years, and I had a chance to get an advanced copy of his book, preview through it, and I thought there were some really intriguing and well-thought-out ideas, and then it went for sale on Amazon. I was here today because I and he were talking about cosmic rays, but he's got some great ideas on how cosmic rays are actually the true catalyst for a feedback loop that gets us into this grand solar minimum. So Larry, thanks for joining us. I know all of my listeners are going to be very excited to hear what you have to say, and I'll just turn it right over to you.
Well, thanks, David, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk about this subject. I got to tell you that when I retired from my litigation law practice, I wanted to move to the country and grow grapes. You know, that's the sort of thing a lot of people do. So I moved out here into the Gulf Islands in British Columbia, and I found that the weather was not doing the same thing year over year. In fact, it seemed to be really erratic. So I did some research, and I discovered that not only is there no global warming, hasn't been for almost 20 years now. In fact, we're headed for a new little ice age, and I think it's already started. So my approach to this whole thing was evidence-based. I mean, I spent over 20 years running lawsuits in Supreme Court in Vancouver, and if you don't have the facts, you lose. It's that simple. And if you show up in court without the facts, and if you're unable to prove them, you're toast. So I succeeded at that, and I wrote this book based on my belief that you could properly research this issue and come up with facts. So I started off looking at the whole question of climate, global warming. As I went along, I found there's a fellow named Heinrich Svensmark who came up with a theory about cosmic rays and clouds. And his theory has since been proven. It goes something like this. When the sun's output is reduced, as it is right now, because of declining sunspots, then the big envelope of charged particles that protects the Earth from incoming galactic cosmic rays is reduced. And cosmic ray counters here on the planet show they're up 20, 30% over the last couple of years. So those incoming cosmic rays are actually the problem with an awful lot of stuff. And mainly, the main thing they do, and as he says in his YouTube video, the cloud mystery, is well worth watching. He says, here's the thing, clouds interact with what are called aerosols, little particles in our atmosphere. They can be from pollution, they can be from dust. Sea salt spray is one of the aerosols that cosmic rays will react with and cause more clouds, create more clouds. So clouds act like a reflector, reflecting the incoming solar radiation, the heat that we need to keep the planet going. They reflect it back into space. Now, open, bare water will absorb a lot of that heat, but cosmic rays create clouds and stop that process. That's one of the factors involved with global cooling.
If I might jump in, what we've seen with these massive storms coming through that are far above the normal, where a lot of the flooding instances that we're seeing now are atmospheric compression events, which involve many more clouds compressing on each other and ringing out. We're getting these once in a 200-year flood, once in a 1,000-year flood, once in a 500-year flood, so commonly now that it's becoming more common than it is becoming the once in a several century event. And if we go back on this similar time frames that we're talking about, back to the 1640s, 1650s, this all makes sense. It's right on a pattern of about 400 years or so with these massive rain events that would accompany greater cloud cover.
Yep, that's absolutely right. And one of the things I did for the research for this book was I read a book by Brian Fagan called The Little Ice Age. And this
Great
relates
book too, yeah.
Yeah, it relates to the historical period between about 1350 and 1850. It was up and down. It wasn't freezing cold all the time. The Little Ice Age is not just about ice and cold. It's about weather uncertainty, and heavy rainstorms were one of the features. Now, again, my interest was in what is the science behind this, because there isn't any science for global warming. There isn't any science for carbon dioxide causing storms. That's just fantasy. But when you look at this impact of clouds piling up, clouds getting thicker, we have more hail, airplanes are being damaged by hail, crops, as we saw in Austria this spring. Austria and parts of France, their fruit and wine crops were absolutely destroyed by the biggest hailstones they'd ever seen. We're going to see more of that, unfortunately. Hail, flood, snow, cold, all of that is part of the new Little Ice Age. There was a hailstorm in the mid-1500s. There was a hailstorm so bad it dropped a meter of hail on German crops. And this is what prompted the Bamberg witch trials. They were convinced that this was such an unusual event, there had to be witchcraft. So they rounded up all the people that seemed like they might be doing that sort of thing and tortured them. And, bad weather creates bad results, not only out in the fields where the crops are, but among humans who want to have explanations.
During that time, the priests were even going up onto the glaciers and blessing the glaciers with holy water to make them recede as they were inching ever so close down to the villages. And you're right, back at that time when famines came up, just human behavior changes in ways that, for us, not even thinkable or conceivable at the moment.
That's right. And now we've got the high priests of global warming who insist that we can solve all of these climate problems by simply paying more taxes. You figure out how that works. I can't figure it out. But we have a priesthood that has been established to promote this global warming religion. And of course, they changed it from global warming to climate change to sort of confuse people. And now they say, oh, well, the climate's changing. Look, we have more storms. And those storms are caused by carbon dioxide, which, by the way, is just a minute little trace gas in our atmosphere. But they continue to sell this idea. Most people, the majority of people, are not buying it. But, there's a big mafioso out there of people that are making money on global warming and are pushing these ideas. So it's a dangerous time. It's a very dangerous time. Don't underestimate these guys. They have the press locked down. Do you think the press has been failing to report accurately what's going on? They've been doing that with global warming forever. The New York Times, for example, back during the email gate hack, when all of those emails were released showing that the very scientists who were pushing global warming didn't really believe it themselves. They wouldn't print that stuff, and they're still trying to pretend that we have this monster global warming. Now, what does that do for the average person? The average person is misled.
There's been a lot of articles coming out specifically this year trying to, again, flip the narrative that CO2-induced warming has more water vapor from the ocean evaporating, which is going to cause heavier snowstorms. So now they're trying to cover their tracks because they know the minimum's here and it's going to get cooler and dump more snow this year. Now they're trying to tell everybody, actually all that heating's creating more cold and more snow. So where do you draw the line between Fantasyland and ulterior dimension? Because heat does not create cold, but that's what they're trying to sell to the people. And you're right, they control the media. And this is what they're selling today, snake oil.
It's snake oil, absolute snake oil.
Climate snake oil.
The very concept of cooling being caused by heat is something that is It's so hard to understand, yet people seem to buy it. Oh yeah, global warming is now cooling the planet.
They'd be a top salesman in any company, wouldn't they?
Yeah, some of them probably were. So humanity is faced with a double whammy right now. We've got the Obama administration in the States. We've got the EU heavily invested in the global warming lie. So these two entities are advising probably a quarter of the world's population. They're making decisions based on this lie that are completely wrong, like windmills, wind farms, alternate energy. The government of Ontario, for example, here in Canada, has almost gone broke over green energy. They didn't think it through. Now, the other part of this problem is that while they're pushing global warming and telling us we can't eat meat, we should be eating bugs to, make the world safe from global warming, it's getting cold. It's definitely getting colder. And the snowfall has been increasing in North America for the last 20 years. There are charts on the net produced by reputable research institutes that show snow coverage has been increasing for a long time.